Hi everyone, welcome to Azad Revenge Stories channel. Your team's headcount needs to be reduced by 20% by the end of this quarter. That's how Bradley said it. Not we need to let people go or there will be layoffs. Like my team was just a number on his spreadsheet. His voice was flat as he slid the manila folder across his desk toward me. Inside was a list of my entire department, 26 women whose lives were about to change with a yellow sticky note that simply read, "Select 5 by Thursday." 2 days. I'd had 48 hours to decide which 5 women would lose their health insurance, their income, their stability. I'm Caroline Webb, 37. And until that moment, I'd spent 8 loyal years believing I was a value director at Westlake Analytics. Before I go further, please like this video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to know who's listening to what happened to me because for months I couldn't tell a soul. When Bradley handed me that folder, I nodded professionally. I asked logical questions about severance packages and selection criteria. I maintained eye contact and kept my voice steady. I was the perfect corporate soldier right up until I got back to my office, closed the door, and silently cried into my hands. These weren't just employees to me. There was May, who just put a down payment on her first home; Tamara, whose daughter needed specialized medical care; Lucia, who'd moved her entire life from Argentina for this job and would lose her visa if terminated. Each name on that list represented years of shared lunches, inside jokes, late nights meeting deadlines, and early mornings bringing coffee when someone was struggling. I stared at that list until the names blurred together. Who was I to play God with their livelihoods? The weight of it sat on my chest like concrete. That evening, I couldn't sleep. At 2:14 a.m., I opened my laptop to review my department's performance metrics again. Maybe there was another way to hit the budget targets without cutting people. As I scrolled through my unread emails, one subject line caught my eye. Not meant for me, but accidentally included on a reply chain. Recorder for executive compensation package. 8.3 M final approval. My stomach dropped. I opened it, telling myself it must be a company-wide communication. It wasn't. It was a confidential thread between Bradley, our CFO Martha Winters, and the board. The email detailed how the company had approved an X-ray NTS 8.3 million bonus package for the top 12 executives, more than $690,000 each, to be distributed the same quarter they were cutting staff. The final line of the email read, "Cost reduction initiatives across departments will offset the approved compensation package. Please ensure all directors meet their headcount reduction targets." My hands started shaking. I wasn't cutting my team to save a struggling company. I was sacrificing them so that Bradley could buy another vacation home. I sat there in my dark living room, the blue light of my laptop illuminating tears I didn't realize were falling. For 8 years, I'd worked weekends and missed birthdays. I'd canceled dates and therapy appointments to meet deadlines. I'd defended company decisions I didn't always agree with because I believed we were all working toward the same goal. What a fool I'd been. By morning, my sadness had hardened into something else entirely, a quiet, cold fury that I'd never felt before. I walked into work that Wednesday with 2 competing thoughts. I couldn't sacrifice my team for executive bonuses, but I also couldn't lose my own job. My mortgage wouldn't pay itself, and the job market was brutal. Everyone was laying people off, not hiring. In the break room, I ran into Zara, our IT security specialist. We weren't close, but she'd helped me recover a corrupted file once and saved my presentation. She noticed my red eyes immediately. "Caroline, are you okay?" I opened my mouth to say the usual, "I'm fine." But what came out was a choked no. Before I could stop myself, I was telling her about the layoffs, though I left out the email about the bonuses. Corporate confidentiality was drilled into us, and even in my state, those instincts ran deep. Zara's face fell. "That's horrible. When do you have to decide?" "Tomorrow." My voice sounded hollow, even to my own ears. She squeezed my arm. "If there's anything I can do." I nodded, not really believing there was anything anyone could do. But as I walked away, a thought formed, dangerous, risky, but once it appeared, I couldn't unthink it. That afternoon, I called an emergency department meeting. All 26 women crammed into our conference room, sensing something was wrong. I'd never called a last-minute meeting before. I have something difficult to share, I began, my voice steadier than I expected. The company has mandated a 20% reduction in our department by the end of this quarter. The room went silent in that awful way. Rooms do when everyone stops breathing at once. Then came the whispers, the widened eyes, the quick calculations of who had been there the shortest time. I want to be transparent with you all, I continued. I've been asked to select 5 people by tomorrow. Lucia's hand flew to her mouth. Tamara's eyes filled with tears. May stared straight ahead, her face frozen. But I said, taking a deep breath, I'm not going to do that. The room shifted. Confusion replaced fear. I've learned something that changes everything, I said, choosing my words carefully. I told them about the email, how the company wasn't struggling, how our jobs were being sacrificed for executive bonuses. I didn't name numbers, but I made it clear. This wasn't necessity. It was greed. I don't have a fully formed plan yet, I admitted, but I refuse to pick 5 of you to sacrifice, so executives can get richer. I'm asking for your trust and discretion while I figure this out. What happened next still makes my throat tight when I remember it. One by one, they nodded. Not a single person got up to leave or made a move to report me. The solidarity in that room was so thick you could breathe it. After everyone left, Zara knocked on the conference room door. I couldn't help overhearing. She said quietly, about the bonuses. My heart sank. Had I just destroyed everything by speaking out? I think I can help, she continued, looking over her shoulder before closing the door. But you need to know, once we do this, there's no going back. That night, Zara and I sat in my living room with takeout containers and laptops. What she proposed wasn't illegal, technically, but it definitely violated company policy, and it would either save my team or get us both fired. The company's quarterly earnings call was in 2 days. Investors, analysts, and financial reporters would all be listening. The executives would present rosy projections and talk about necessary restructuring without mentioning the bonuses. The earnings call is public, Zara explained, but the information about which employees have access to listen is stored in our system. We could adjust that list. The plan was audacious. We would ensure that every employee in the company, not just the usually approved senior managers, received the call-in details for the earnings call. Then we would anonymously provide context to key financial reporters about questions they should ask regarding executive compensation during the restructuring. If they lie during a public earnings call, that's securities fraud. Zahar said they won't risk it. They'll have to either deny the bonuses exist, which we know isn't true, or admit to them publicly. I pushed my food around. This could backfire spectacularly. Yes, she agreed. But do you have a better idea? I didn't. By midnight, our plan was set. Zara would modify the distribution list for the earnings call details to include all employees. I would anonymously tip off 3 financial reporters I'd worked with on press releases over the years, suggesting they ask about specific executive compensation packages during a time of layoffs. The next morning, my deadline day, Bradley called me into his office. Do you have the names? He asked, not bothering with a greeting. I took a deep breath. This was my moment of no return. I need more time, I said. I can't make this decision by today. Bradley's face darkened. This isn't a request, Caroline. The deadline is non-negotiable. I understand, but I'm telling you, I need more time to properly evaluate performance metrics. I was stalling, and we both knew it. Fine, you have until Monday. His tone made it clear this was my only extension. But Caroline, don't make me regret putting you in this position of trust. The irony of his words nearly made me laugh. Trust. As if they trusted me with the knowledge of why my team was really being cut. That afternoon, Zara confirmed she'd updated the distribution list for the earnings call. Every employee would receive the details the following morning. I spent the evening drafting carefully worded emails to 3 financial reporters I'd worked with before. I didn't mention specifics, just suggested they might want to ask about executive compensation packages being approved alongside the current restructuring. As I hit send on the final email, My phone lit up with a text from Zara. All set for tomorrow. No turning back now. I barely slept that night. By dawn, I was already dressed and pacing my apartment, waiting for the workday to begin. Today would determine everything. When I arrived at the office, the atmosphere was tense but hopeful. My team gave me small nods of solidarity as I passed. None of them knew exactly what was planned, but they trusted me. That trust felt like both a gift and a burden. At 9:15 a.m., the company-wide email went out with the earnings call details, a call normally reserved for executives and senior management. I watched from my office as employees throughout the building read the email with confusion, then interest. At 10:30 a.m., I was summoned to Bradley's office. His face was thunderous. "Did you know about this?" He thrust his tablet at me, showing the company-wide email. I feigned confusion. The earnings call. I assumed it was intentional transparency during difficult times. He didn't believe me. I could tell, but he couldn't prove I was involved. "It is looking into it," he said. "Meanwhile, I need those names by Monday. No exceptions." I nodded, heart pounding as I left his office. In the hallway, I passed Martha from finance, who gave me a suspicious look. They were connecting dots, but the call was in 3 hours. Too late to stop it now. At 1:30 p.m., employees throughout the building began discreetly logging into the earnings call. Management was too busy preparing to notice the unusual number of participants joining. The call began at exactly 2 p.m. Our CEO, Richard Blackwood, started with his usual confident preamble about strong positioning and strategic adjustments. Bradley presented the restructuring plan using sterile terms like right sizing and operational efficiency. I sat at my desk, headphones in, barely breathing as they opened the call for questions from analysts and media. The first few questions were softballs about market conditions and projected growth. Then came the moment we'd been waiting for. "This is Alex Chen from Financial Times," came a voice. "In light of the staff reductions you've just outlined, could you comment on reports that Westlake has approved an $8.3 million executive bonus package for this same quarter?" The silence that followed lasted only seconds, but felt eternal. Through my office windows, I could see other employees looking up from their desks, heads turning toward one another. Richard cleared his throat. "I'm not sure where you're getting that figure." "I have the same question," interrupted another reporter. "Multiple sources have confirmed significant executive compensation packages were approved alongside these layoffs. Can you confirm or deny this?" Another silence. I could almost hear the executives exchanging panicked glances in the conference room. As is standard practice, Richard finally said, his voice tight, "Executive compensation is determined by the board based on performance metrics and is not something we generally discuss on earnings calls." It wasn't a denial. They couldn't deny it because it was true, and lying would be securities fraud. But his non-answer was confirmation enough. A third reporter pressed. "Just to clarify, is Westlake Analytics laying off employees to fund executive bonuses?" "Absolutely not," Richard snapped. But it was too late. The damage was done. Throughout the building, I could see employees removing headphones, talking urgently to one another. Slack channels exploded with messages. The secret was out. By 3:00 p.m., Bradley was striding toward my office, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. Bradley slammed my office door so hard the blinds rattled against the glass. His face was flushed, veins bulging at his temples. "What the hell did you do?" He hissed the words through clenched teeth. I sat back in my chair, heart hammering, the voice steady. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't play stupid, Caroline. Those reporters knew exact figures. Someone leaked confidential information, and everyone in this building just heard it." I stared back at him, silent. 8 years of swallowing my opinions, of nodding and smiling and being a good corporate soldier. It all ended in this moment. His glare didn't intimidate me anymore. The CEO wants everyone involved in the conference room now. He stood over my desk trying to use his height to intimidate me. "This is a fireable offense. Hell, it could be criminal." "I'll be right there," I said calmly. As he stormed out, my phone lit up with a text from Zara. "They are checking the email distribution logs. Get ready." My hands should have been shaking, but strangely, I felt steadier than I had in days. The worst they could do was fire me, and I'd already accepted that possibility the moment Zara and I hatched our plan. In the hallway, employee conversations hushed as I walked past. Some avoided eye contact, others gave me subtle nods of solidarity. They'd connected the dots. Word travels fast in an office when executives are panicking. When I entered the conference room, 6 people were waiting. Richard, Bradley, Martha from finance, 2 board members I recognized from company photos, and a woman I assumed was legal counsel. Their faces were grim. "Sit down, Caroline," Richard said, gesturing to the lone chair facing their side of the table. A clear power play, making me face the firing squad alone. I sat, folded my hands on the table, and waited. An unauthorized distribution of confidential call information went out this morning, Richard began, and somehow reporters knew to ask about executive compensation packages, specifically an $8.3 million package. He paused, expecting me to fill the silence. I didn't. Given your reluctance to comply with the reduction mandate and the fact that you were one of very few people with access to this information, we have reason to believe you're involved. Martha slid a printout across the table. The email distribution list was modified last night at 8:42 p.m. It traced the authorization code. I glanced at the paper. It showed the system access log with my credentials. "I'd like to know why I shouldn't terminate your employment right now," Richard said. I took a deep breath. "The moment of truth. You absolutely could fire me," I said, surprised by how calm I sounded. "But before you do, I think we should talk about what happens next." I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder, the same manila folder Bradley had given me with the layoff list. "3 things are going to happen today," I continued. "First, you're going to announce that there will be no layoffs in my department." Bradley scoffed. "You're not in a position to make demands." "Second," I continued as if he hadn't spoken, "you're going to revisit that executive compensation package and redirect those funds to the departments facing cuts." "This is absurd," Martha said. "The board has already." "And third," I cut in, opening the folder, "you're going to provide written confirmation that there will be no retaliation against me or anyone else involved in today's events." The legal counsel leaned forward. "Miss Webb, are you admitting involvement in leaking confidential information and stating facts about what needs to happen next?" I replied. "And here are some more facts." I laid out 3 documents from my folder. This is the email about the executive bonus package that was accidentally sent to me. This is a time-stamped backup I made of that email. And this, I said, placing the 3rd document in front of them, is a draft statement I've prepared for social media and several journalists I know, detailing how Westlake Analytics chose to fire employees to fund executive bonuses during an economic downturn. The room went deadly quiet. "You wouldn't," Martha whispered. "I sat in this building for 2 days trying to choose which of my team members to destroy while you all were dividing up millions in bonuses." I said, my voice finally betraying emotion. "So yes, I absolutely would." Richard's face had gone from red to white. "That would tank our stock." "It might," I agreed, "and I'd prefer not to do that. I have friends here whose 401x would suffer, but I also have 26 women in my department who don't deserve to lose their livelihoods, so you can add another comma to your bank accounts." The legal counsel whispered something to Richard. He nodded tightly. "What exactly are you proposing?" he asked. Like I said, no layoffs in my department. Redirect the bonus package to operations. No retaliation. I met his eyes directly. "In exchange, this situation stays contained to today's earnings call. No further leaks, no social media, no journalists." Bradley slammed his hand on the table. "This is blackmail." The lawyer shot him a warning look. "It's a negotiation," she corrected carefully. Richard studied me for a long moment. "And if we refuse," I gathered my documents back into the folder. "Then I walk out that door, post my statement, and let the public decide if they want to invest in or purchase products from a company with these priorities." For 15 excruciating minutes, they asked me to leave the room while they conferred. I stood in the hallway, legs trembling now that I was alone. What had I done? This could still go terribly wrong. May walked past, giving me a questioning look. I managed a small nod that I hoped conveyed both. I'm handling it and I'm terrified simultaneously. When they called me back in, Richard's expression was unreadable. We've discussed your proposal, he said stiffly. The board agrees that layoffs may have been premature. We'll freeze the current restructuring plan pending further review. I waited. That wasn't enough. Martha sighed heavily. The executive compensation package will be reduced and partially reallocated to operational budgets. Entirely reallocated, I countered. Richard's jaw tightened, but he nodded. And there will be no retaliation against you or anyone else regarding today's incident. I need that in writing. I said legal will draft something. He leaned forward. But Caroline, understand this. Your advancement at this company ends today. You'll keep your current position. Your team stays intact, but this is as far as you go with us. It was a fair trade, my career trajectory for my team's security. I understand. As I stood to leave, Richard added, this corporation has been publicly embarrassed today. That doesn't happen without consequences, one way or another. The threat lingered in the air as I walked out. By 5:00 p.m. a company-wide email announced that the planned restructuring had been postponed indefinitely. No mention of bonuses, no acknowledgement of the earnings call disaster, just corporate speak for we're backing down, but don't want to admit it. I gathered my team in the conference room to share what I could. The layoffs have been canceled, I told them. Your jobs are secure. The relief in the room was palpable. Tamara actually started crying. Lucia grabbed my hand and squeezed it so hard it hurt. What did you do? May asked quietly. I shook my head. Nothing I can discuss, but it's handled. They didn't press for details. Maybe they didn't want to know. Maybe they already suspected. What mattered was that they were safe. As they filed out, Jen, the most recent hire, paused at the door. Whatever you did, she said. Thank you. That simple gratitude nearly broke me. Zara found me in my office later, closing the door behind her. They've been in damage control all afternoon. She reported the stock dipped after the call, but it's already stabilizing. Social media is having a field day with the bonus question and the non-answer. Did they trace anything back to you? I asked. She shook her head. I covered my tracks. They found your credentials on the distribution list change because I wanted them to find it. Just enough evidence to make their point without involving anyone else. I stared at her stunned. You set me up to take all the blame. I set you up to have all the leverage. She corrected. They found exactly what I wanted them to find. Nothing more, nothing less. That night, I couldn't sleep again, but for entirely different reasons. I'd stood up to executive leadership, and once sort of, my team was safe. The obscene bonuses would be redirected. But Richard's warning echoed in my head. This doesn't happen without consequences. I knew what he meant. I'd be watched closely now. Every minor mistake documented, every deadline monitored. They'd build a case for letting me go that had nothing to do with today. It might take months, or even a year, but eventually they'd find a way to push me out. The question was, did I even want to stay? 2 days later, I got my answer. A client I'd worked with for years, Valerie Kim, called me directly rather than going through our normal channels. Caroline, she said, I heard something interesting on your company's earnings call. My stomach dropped. Oh, MHM. I've been in corporate America long enough to read between the lines of that non-denial about executive bonuses during layoffs. She paused. It got me thinking about who might have had the courage to make that information public. I stayed silent. Our company is expanding our analytics division. She continued. We need someone with integrity to lead the team, someone who puts people first. The position pays 30% more than what you're making now based on the industry averages for your role. I gripped the phone tighter. Are you offering me a job, Valerie? I'm offering you an interview that's really just a formality. The job is yours if you want it. Her voice softened. And Caroline, you can bring your team. All of them. 1 month later, I sat in my nearly empty office at Westlake, placing the last of my personal items into a cardboard box. 19 members of my team had accepted positions with Valerie's company. The other 7 had leveraged the restructuring freeze to find jobs elsewhere with my glowing recommendations. Bradley appeared in my doorway, eyes narrowed as he watched me pack. "You won't last there," he said. "They'll see what we saw, that you're disloyal." I carefully wrapped a photo frame in tissue paper, a group picture of my team from last year's holiday party. "What you call disloyalty," I said without looking up, "Valerie calls integrity. Perspective is everything. We're burning a bridge you can't rebuild." I finally met his gaze. "Some bridges should be burned, Bradley. Some connections aren't worth maintaining." As I carried my box through the office, past the empty desks where my team had sat, I felt lighter than I had in years. I'd lost something here. Security, certainty, the comfort of the familiar. Thought I'd gained something far more valuable. The knowledge that I could stand up for what was right, even when it was terrifying. In the parking lot, Sarah was waiting by her car. She'd accepted a senior security position at Valerie's company, too. "Ready for the next chapter?" she asked, helping me load my box. "More than ready." I looked back at the Westlake building one last time. "You know, I never thought of myself as someone who would risk everything like that." "Most people don't," she said, "until they are faced with a choice they can't live with." 6 months later, our new team gathered for a strategy meeting. Looking around the room at the familiar faces, May, Tamara, Lucia, and the others, I felt something I hadn't experienced at Westlake in years. Genuine pride. We weren't just survivors now. We were thriving. During a break, I checked my phone and saw a news alert about Westlake Analytics. Their stock had dropped 40% after 2 consecutive quarters of missed targets. The article mentioned that several key client relationships had deteriorated following personnel changes. I wasn't surprised. When you treat people as disposable, eventually you dispose of your company's future. Our clients had followed us not because of a brand name, but because of the relationships we'd built. Relationships that Westlake had been willing to sacrifice for short-term executive enrichment. Valerie popped her head into the conference room. "How's the team doing?" "We are exceeding projections by 17%. I said, "Turns out keeping talented people and treating them well is good for business." She smiled. Revolutionary concept. That evening, I stood on my balcony watching the sunset, reflecting on the past 6 months. I'd gone from crying in my office over an impossible choice to leading a thriving team at a company that valued us. The journey hadn't been easy. I'd had panic attacks, sleepless nights, and moments of crippling doubt. But I'd discovered something about myself in that conference room at Westlake, facing down executives who thought they held all the power. I'd found my voice, not just for myself, but for 26 other women who deserve better. Sometimes the best revenge isn't some elaborate scheme. Sometimes it's simply refusing to participate in your own destruction and helping others do the same. My phone buzzed with a text from Zara. "Heard Bradley got let go today. Restructuring." Ironic, right? I smiled to myself. Not revenge, justice. The corporate world had taught me that power moves in only one direction, downward, from the executives to the expendable. But we'd proven that wrong. When we stand together, when we refuse to be pitted against each other, the flow of power can reverse. So, if you're watching this and you're facing your own impossible choice, remember my story. Remember that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply say no and mean it. Oh, and if you're wondering what happened to that $8.3 million executive bonus package, it funded our department's operations for another year at Westlake. After we left, rumor has it they tried to reinstate it. But by then, 3 more departments had learned to ask questions during earnings calls. Some lessons once learned can't be unlearned. Some changes once started can't be stopped. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And I'd love to hear in the comments if you've ever had to make a difficult choice at work, or if you've ever had the satisfaction of walking away from a toxic situation. Your stories matter too, because that's what I learned through all of this. Our stories told truthfully have power. Sometimes they even have the power to change things we thought were unchangeable. Remember that. I know I always will. I invite you to subscribe to the Azad Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and support me further by hitting the hype button so the story in this video can be heard by many more people. Thanks to all.